Imagine waking up on a cold 13th century morning. You have no watch, no calendar, no phone. The sun barely peeks through the clouds, and a rooster crows in the distance. How do you know if it's time to work or to pray? Time isn't on your wrist or your screen. It's in the sky, in the water, and in the bells that govern your life. Welcome to Lost History, where you learn without getting bored. Stay till the end because you'll discover how medieval clocks didn't just measure time. They invented it. Today we live surrounded by clocks. Your phone, your oven, your car, even your fridge tells you the time. But for almost all of human history, no one knew exactly what time it was. Time was organic, shifting. Days didn't last exactly 24 hours, and sunrise marked the beginning of everything. The precision we take for granted today, minutes, seconds, alarms, was in the Middle Ages an unthinkable luxury. And you know what? That uncertainty shaped how people ate, prayed, worked, and dreamed. Time was a feeling, not a number. The incredible part comes now, because despite that lack of technology, medieval people tamed time with a creativity that borders on the poetic. Before clocks, nature was the timekeeper. The sun dictated the rhythm of the day. Peasants watched the shadow of a stick in the ground, a gnomon, the ancestor of the sundial. When the shadow was short, it was midday. When it grew long, you knew the day's work in the fields must end. But the sun wasn't always out. Clouds, winter, or a poorly oriented church could throw off the calculation. That's why the night offered its own system, the stars. Navigators and monks knew how to read the sky. Constellations like Orion or the North Star helped estimate the hours of the night. Imagine it, a monk high in a tower, gazing at the firmament to decide when to ring the bells for the night prayer. One mistake could disrupt the monastery's entire routine. And when neither the sun nor the stars could help, a surprising invention came into play, the clepsydra, or water clock. A vessel with a small hole let the liquid drip out slowly. As the water level fell, it marked the passage of time. It wasn't exact, but it was constant. In some monasteries, monks watched these water clocks night after night, replacing the water to keep the rhythm of the prayers. Can you imagine having to pray every 3 hours without a digital watch to remind you? They did it, and with an almost ritual precision. In a moment, you'll discover how those prayers marked the birth of the first mechanical clocks. In the heart of the Middle Ages, monasteries were time factories. Their lives revolved around the canonical hours. Matins at dawn, lauds, prime, terce, sext, none, vespers, and compline, 8 daily moments of prayer. 8 bells that split the day into sacred fragments. But depending on the sun or water was inefficient. So the monks searched for a more reliable solution, mechanical clocks. And here, a silent revolution begins. The first mechanisms appeared in the 13th century, driven by weights and gears. They had no hands. They only rang a bell at certain times. They were more like machines that spoke the language of God. The sound of a bell indicated not just the time, but the divine order of the universe. Soon, cities adopted these towers with ringing clocks. The public no longer needed to look at the sky, they just had to listen. For the first time, time became public. Each bell organized urban life. It opened markets, closed taverns, and marked the curfew. And without knowing it, Europe was entering the era of time control. But not everyone saw this as a good thing. Some chroniclers said those clocks steal the freedom of the soul, because every bell imposed a new discipline. Time, once natural and free, became a rigid structure. One more step toward the modern mindset, and toward capitalism. Stay till the end, because you'll see how even without electricity, medieval people invented their own alarm clocks. Monks weren't the only ones obsessed with measuring time. Arab and European astronomers developed one of the most fascinating instruments in history, the astrolabe. A metal disc engraved with the sky, able to calculate the time based on the position of the sun or the stars. It was a mix of a compass, a calendar, and an astronomical clock. Some were so precise they could even determine the exact time of sunrise months in advance. And speaking of planning, medieval calendars were true maps of the agricultural and religious soul. Feasts, harvests, eclipses, and lunar phases were interwoven into the same symbolic fabric. They weren't just tools, they were worldviews. But the most curious touch of all comes now: the first alarm systems. Some monks used candles with marks carved into them. As the wax melted, it reached a point where it would hit a small bell or release a small weight. A medieval alarm clock powered by fire. And in the cities, there was a special figure, the sereno, or the night watchman. His job was to walk the streets and wake up the artisans before dawn. A human alarm, long before the alarm clocks of the 18th century. Here's the part almost no one tells you. These technologies didn't just change how time was measured, they changed how it was lived. Punctuality began to define morality. Being late could be seen as a sin or a sign of laziness. Cathedrals were designed to face the sun. Workshops opened with the bells. And universities began to divide their classes into academic hours. Time became an invisible architecture that held society together. Before the clock hung on the wall, time was a sensory experience. It was seen in the shadows, heard in the bells, felt in the flow of water or the melting of a candle. And, curiously, that lack of precision wasn't a flaw. It was a form of freedom. Days weren't divided into sterile minutes, but into meaningful moments. Work, prayer, and rest followed the pulse of the world, not a machine. The incredible part is that, without realizing it, those medieval inventors laid the foundations of the modern world. Every gear in a mechanical clock hid a cultural revolution, one of control, productivity, and time-based anxiety. Perhaps the lesson from the Middle Ages isn't how to measure time better, but how to stop being slaves to it. Because as you look at your watch or your phone, remember there was a time when time wasn't counted. It was lived. If you enjoy these deep dives where you learn without getting bored, like this video and subscribe to Lost History. Every day, a historical journey with scenes you won't forget.